Okay, let's speak to Laura Blumenfeld, former senior policy advisor on the State Department's Israeli-Palestinian negotiating team. Laura, good to see you again. What do you think about the timing of this letter, why it's released now?
Well, I think that there's three interesting things: the who, the what, and the when. I mean, as far as the when, the timing, I absolutely think that those 30 days are significant. November 5th is the presidential election. And after that, under what some might call a lame duck Biden presidency, he'll have a free hand to exercise the kind of leverage that won't have to take domestic political considerations into account as much as we have in these next 3 weeks. The most important thing is that there have been conversations before, but they've never put it in writing. And as the Italians say, la carta canta, the paper sings. It's a document, it can be leaked, which obviously it has, and scrutinized. I also think the who is important, that it came from not only the Secretary of Defense, but the Secretary of State. It was almost like one of these kind of full court press interventions, which is important to show that it's not just a diplomatic effort, but it's military to military. And finally, the what. I mean, what they're saying is if there's no humanitarian aid delivered, then your military aid will be affected. And that is a matter of survival for the civilians in Gaza and survival for the civilians in Israel. So the stakes couldn't be higher at this very kinetic time, which is, the last 21 days of a presidential race.
Indeed. But Laura, we heard the question that was asked by our State Department correspondent Tom Bateman at the briefing earlier. And a question many people are asking is, more than a year into this war, what impact does a letter like this have?
Well, I think that, the letter is one side of a coin. The other side of that coin is that missile defense battery that's being deployed as we speak. I think that both of those are the same kind of currency, which is saying, Israel, we're going to put boots on the ground for your defense. And we expect concrete conditions on the ground in Gaza and also, frankly, in Lebanon to change. And I do think that they have leverage. We've seen that. Netanyahu, I think his first choice in targets in terms of retaliation with Iran would have been to go after the nuclear facilities. And if second choice would have been the oil production sites. And so we are seeing some kind of leverage being exercised. It's not enough. And I believe after the election, you're going to see some very different picture coming out of the United States. We saw that after the election in 2016, when President Obama, was coming to the end of his second term, where there was a UN Security Council resolution condemning Israel on settlements, and the United States abstained rather than vetoing it. That's just one example, and there'll be more, I think, to come.
So we know the Israelis are looking at it, as we've heard, Laura, but what response do you anticipate from them?
Well, I have to say right now the Israelis are kind of in full gangster mode. I was sort of surprised to hear the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, responding to the acting commander of Hezbollah's speech today with a quote. He said, his day will come. So I do think that they're a little bit like in a kind of cheesy revenge movie where they've had their list. It was Hamas #1, Hezbollah #2, Iran #3. But we're kind of coming to the end of that kind of vicious revenge cycle, you could call it. And what I'm hoping for is with this kind of retaliation, if it comes, that we manage to get a kind of put the brakes on it. I think that we're looking at an explosion in the Middle East, and the best that we can do right now is control that explosion.
Laura Blumenfeld, as always, great analysis. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Good to be here.
In Lebanon, the deputy leader of Hezbollah